Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective as we begin the most lonely Thursday collective in the history of the show. It's just me today, but that's why I need your participation in the chat and the super chat. Also, hit that join button to become a member, and let's jump right into this. Abortion is a blurry issue right now in much of the United States. As we know, Roe v. Wade, the federal law, like the decision by the Supreme Court in the 1970s that basically made it impossible for all the various states to ban abortion, that was overturned. So now many states are opting to ban it. But let me remind you that election season is upon us. And come November, I think a lot of voters are going to sort of express their views on this. I will say it's not a happy day when your rights are up to vote. Your rights are not, in fact, a matter of popular votes. It should not be. So when I see voters in places such as Kansas voting to stop the state from banning abortion, that is voting to protect abortion rights, I'll say, 2 cheers. And that's 2 loud cheers, but it's not quite 3 cheers, because the protection of your right to abortion should be, determined and clarified by legal scholars, and then, enforced by court decisions. And that should be it. It should not be up to anybody's vote. I'm going to share my screen with you now, and let's take a look at the United States. As you can see, we've got a color-coded map of the United States where it's very dark red. Abortion is now illegal. South Dakota, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, however they pronounce it. Who cares anyway? They're not very bright according to what I'm looking at on this map. Hopefully a lot of this dark red becomes yellow very soon. So yellow means your right to abortion is protected. Expanded access is the turquoise or light blue. I'm not quite sure what that means, obviously, or it should be obvious if you're an avid viewer of this show. The right to abortion should be protected. That doesn't mean that your access to it should be subsidized or paid for by somebody else's tax dollars. So, I'm lukewarm on the turquoise, when I'm not quite sure what it means yet. But definitely the yellow is a good sign. The orange is, I guess, only Virginia and Puerto Rico are currently, along with New Hampshire, and of course New Mexico. Those are in the orange. Abortion is not protected, which I think means we're not quite sure what's going to happen. Now, recently in Kansas, smack in the middle of the United States, a little bit on the southern side, which is good for our purposes, I think. Voters recently voted to not ban abortion, or they voted against the state's ability to ban abortion. In a long story short, I mean, these types of things are always complicated. Vote yes, vote no, vote yes on the no bill, right? Vote no on the affirmative bill. It's always a little bit confusing, but basically, voters expressed that they want your right to abortion to be protected in Kansas. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first election relating to abortion in the United States since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Is that correct? I think it is. Now, over in Michigan recently, a certain judge, either the Supreme Court or someone, a high-ranking judge in Michigan, ruled to say that a 1930s abortion ban can now be enforced. So basically, they're not typically, judges are not typically saying abortion is now banned. I think they're basically saying abortion is no longer protected, which means it's illegal, which means that prosecutors can enforce that illegality. To remind you, not only is this show a place for students to explore the philosophy of Ayn Rand, it's also a place for laymen to discuss legal philosophy and to do some legal analysis. So please, take this in the spirit in which it's intended. I am a pro-abortion rights student of philosophy and student of the culture who is thinking out loud over here. So do your own research, of course. But yeah, Michigan basically, a certain judge, a high-ranking judge, recently ruled that a 1930s abortion ban can now be enforced. Yes, a prosecutor in Michigan can prosecute someone for performing an abortion. However, another high-ranking judge in Michigan, like, suspended that, like, soon after, basically saying, don't go arresting anyone just yet, or don't go prosecuting anyone just yet. And it's unclear. It's blurry right now. So Michigan, being the swing state that it is, being the Midwestern state that it is, it's sort of a microcosm for the United States right now. We're not quite sure what to expect. We're not quite sure what's next. But if Kansas is any indication, and I expressed my delight at seeing that a state that is closer to the South than it is to the North, that the popular vote in Kansas voted to protect abortion rights. I'm hoping, wishfully thinking, that abortion rights will be protected by popular vote to the extent that voters are able to protect it in the upcoming elections. And again, 2 cheers for that, because your right to abortion should not be up to anybody's vote. It should be like, just like saying actual murder should not be up to anyone's vote, like actual murder between 2 individuals, that should not be up to vote. That should just simply be illegal, and no state should be able to legalize real actual murder. So too, your right to an abortion should not be up to anybody's vote. Some laws or some rights are not should not be up to anybody's votes. I'm not sure if any rights should be up to any votes, but let's say certain laws that are not clearly violating or nor protecting anybody's rights. I don't know. Let's say the right to own an M16, I suppose. Maybe that should be up to individual states. Just giving you an example of how some laws, I suppose, might be up to particular states. But to me, it should be off the table for any voters in any region to vote one way or the other on abortion. Abortion rights should be sacrosanct, should be fully protected by the law. All right, I suppose with that, we can stop sharing the screen, and I'll return to you here. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Yeah, the analytic synthetic dichotomy, a big fan of the essay, by the way, says they wouldn't be rights if they were up to a vote. Of course, I mean, sadly, the culture we live in is not quite fully aware of that. We need a philosophical revolution in America and in the world. We need an ethical revolution, which of course is a part of a philosophical revolution. We need, and when it comes to ethics and politics, we need a clear understanding of what rights actually are. Rights are not for when it's convenient. Rights are not for when the community agrees on said rights. Rights are rights. Rights are inalienable, and that's just the way it ought to be understood. Otherwise, they're not actually rights. So your right to an abortion sort of came under fire with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court of the United States overturned this somewhat sketchy ruling, Roe v. Wade. It was somewhat of a flimsy ruling, I understand, but at least it protected your right to an abortion, or I should say it prevented individual states or precincts from violating that right. But with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, now individual states, as we could see by that map that I showed you a minute ago, certain states are taking action. But the impression I get, and this is again me wishfully thinking, and this is my prediction, and I certainly hope my prediction is correct. The voters throughout the United States are going to loudly proclaim that they are not on board with anti-abortion shenanigans. I think you're going to see that all through the United States. I could be wrong, but I think even in the Deep South, I think everywhere you go, you're going to hear the sort of silent majority. You're going to hear women. You're going to hear, I don't know, businessmen, academics, people who have some tendency to want what life has to offer, that cannot in good conscience walk into a doctor's office and tell another human being what procedure they may have on her own person. You're going to see a lot of people go to the polls. That's my prediction, and I hope that's correct. I am hoping to see that the popular vote moves to protect abortion in most or all of the United States. But hey, what's my prediction actually worth? No reason to take my word for it. Let's see what happens. November, I believe, is the midterm election season. That is, it's sort of like between presidential cycles. We have the midterms where federal senators and congressmen are elected. And I think also like local state elections take place at that same time. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, do your own research and so on. So again, I'll repeat again, 2 cheers for the popular vote protecting your right to abortion. 2 cheers for that, because it should not be, it ought not be up to popular vote. What does this mean for the future of the Republican Party? There is now no doubt that Republicans are the anti-abortion party. Of course, this was always kind of on their wish list, right? But for the most part, it kind of seemed like a pipe dream. It seemed like it was never actually going to happen that Roe v. Wade could be overturned. I don't think anybody actually thought it would be overturned at any point. So basically, the sort of political understanding has been among Americans in recent decades that Democrats are never going to get to like overturn the Second Amendment, for example, to the extent they want to, or they're never really going to get rid of gun rights. And in turn, Republicans need to accept that Roe v. Wade is not going anywhere. That's been, I think, what the average person in America believed. But of course, Roe v. Wade was overturned, and now there's just no doubt in anyone's mind that voting Republican means voting to keep, either to make abortion illegal or to not protect the right to an abortion. Now, Republicans and abortion go hand in hand. That is, Republicans and the banning of abortion go hand in hand. It's very clear now where Republicans stand on this, and that if you vote for Republicans, you may very well see the banning of abortion increase throughout America. And I know people want to say, oh, it's just a states' rights issue. Give me a break, please. Give me a break. Oh, such a states' rights enthusiast. They want to ban abortion because in their view, abortion is murder. In their view, from the moment of conception onward, we have a human being in their view. At least that's what they say. At least that's the reason they give for wanting to ban abortion. So I'm curious to see, are many Americans going to vote the way I'm kind of predicting? Are they many of them going to vote Democrat? Are many of them going to vote, or maybe they're going to punish Republicans that are, part of this, which is virtually all of them. But let's say there's a Republican who's more pro-choice, or kind of indicates that anything he or she can do to roll back this anti-abortion trend, he or she would do. Would voters reward that type of Republican and in general punish Republicans for this? It's quite possible. I'll remind you, this is also the upcoming midterms in November is also going to be the first major election cycle since January 6, 2021. So I think we have not heard the last of January 6th. And it's not only because of the hearings. It's not because the media and the left are reminding us of this. I think a lot of Americans, a lot of people who up until January 6th, they were still not quite sure what to make of Trump and the Republicans under his jurisdiction, under his watch. But after January 6th, they want nothing to do with Trump and his shenanigans. So it's going to be interesting to see. Are Republicans still going to be punished for what has taken place with this Trump freak show? Hey, look, I can't call it, or I can call it, but I can't control it. I can't tell people how to vote. I'm just I'm hinting strongly that we haven't heard the last of January 6th from voters. I think there's a good chance that voters are still planning to punish the Trump type of Republicans for what took place on January 6th. And now with the anti-abortion stuff happening, there's a very good chance that the future is Democratic. And I'll say not even 2 cheers, 1 cheer for that. Maybe no cheers, but this needs to happen. I've always, up until recently, I've always understood people who say, listen, Republicans are bad. They're real bad, but they're all we've got, They're all we've got as defenders of liberty. They're all we've got. We need to work with Republicans. After the overturning of Roe v. Wade, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to vote at all. I generally haven't voted in the last couple of elections, but I can't imagine voting Republican after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. To me, this is I can't understand what anybody can like about Republicans at this point. This is just quite literally life and death. I mean, to go into a doctor's office and tell a woman you may not get an abortion, to me, is like tantamount to slavery. It just absolutely blows my mind. Let's read this nice super chat we got from Vigard. 200 Noakes. Is that the Norwegian thing? I think it is. All right. Thank you for that. Vigard says, according to many on the right, as well as many libertarians, the Civil War was also about states' rights. Yes, is like how the internet people mock the opposition. Like when people mock objectivists, like if they were going to make fun of me, they would say, my individual rights, like, so when I make arguments, no, you have, as an individual, you have the right to an abortion. You have a right to live by your judgment and control your own body and your own, the fruits of your labor, and to speak freely. And they would in turn mock that. They would say, oh, my individual rights. It's just a way of dismissing what the opposition is saying. Now, of course, Vigard he's an intellectual, he or she, because obviously he's watching this show and is a very thoughtful person. So we know there's more depth to their view of the issue. But yes, many libertarians and many on the right, and yeah, I guess maybe some on the left as well. Right. Well, let's put the left aside because it's too murky. But yeah, when it comes to the Civil War, no, we're not pro-slavery. We're just for states' rights. Okay, what if the state wants to tax you 100% and enslave everybody? What if the state of California wants to actually go full communist? Are you still for states' rights? Maybe a lot on the right would say, well, yeah, we're just going to stay out of California. But I say no. The rights of the individual should not be up to any state. States don't, in fact, have rights, right? States have a role to play in the system that the United States was crafted as. And that type of mapping, I should say, or that type of system that the founders of America passed down to us should be protected because of what it represents. And that is why going to war with the South was proper. For one of the reasons being, you have every right to attack a state or a cluster of states that uphold slavery, right? By them having slavery, they have no claim against you invading them. So that's point number one. Point number two, protecting the United States, protecting the Union is a way of protecting the rights of the individual, the way I understand it. The northern states alone would not be strong enough probably to defend the Constitution. Basically, we needed all the states to remain intact. But we should get a Civil War expert or a history expert to discuss that. Maybe a Brandon episode. That's not President Brandon for all of you no nonsense Republicans that are tuning in. Anyway, I have a lot of thoughts about what's coming up when it comes to elections. I think the American people are not happy with the Republican Party. And, people are predicting, a red wave. The left has gotten so kooky. Biden is doing such a bad job that, Republicans are going to sweep. Hey, listen, this is not my vocation in life. Making predictions is not what I do, but I do have my predictions. I do have my suspicions. I do think January 6th and the overturning of Roe v. Wade are going to make the party of Trump and the party of anti-abortion pay for their crimes, so to speak, their political crimes. We'll find out, won't we? And with all that being said, let me tell you what's coming up today at 10 p.m. UK time. It's Life on Earth with Robert and Amy Nasser. They will talk about time, how to think about it rationally, manage it wisely, use it productively, profitably, and enjoyably. All right, everybody. Look, man, I get it. The Democrats are crazy. You think they're socialists or whatever. For one thing, you should, I'm speaking to, defenders of liberty here who disagree with me about Republican versus Democrat. You should be punishing Republicans for what they've become in recent years. Okay. We are not at a point where voting Democrat means that, using the right pronouns is going to be enforced nationwide, but we are on the verge, if not in the place where voting Republican could very well mean banning abortion nationwide. So now is the time to punish Republicans. Now is the time to tell Republicans the route you're taking is not okay with me as a voter. And again, I wish voters didn't have this much power. I wish your political rights were very clear in the legal philosophy department. I wish it was very clear, and that Americans understood that judges and lawmakers understood those rights very clearly, and most of this stuff wouldn't even be up to vote. But as long as we do have the ability to vote and make our voice clear, if ever there was a time to punish Republicans for this populist orgy, I think that time is now. The Republicans, from what I've picked up, are still following Trump to the edge of the earth. In places such as Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, Trump is the kingmaker. So when it comes to the primaries, the primary election, that is when Republicans and Democrats each pick who they're going to send to the general election, whether it's president or congressman. And in this case, it's the congressmen and senators. Trump is the kingmaker in much of America, such as Michigan, from what I've picked up. And if Trump is the kingmaker, then the Republican Party has some soul searching to do, in my opinion. And unless you, the voter, get Republicans to do said soul searching, you are not fighting the left. You are actually turning America into a place where both parties are on the left, in my estimation of things. So now is the time to make it clear to Republicans, if Trump is your guy, then count me out. Also, obviously, looking at today's topic, abortion. If you do value the right to abortion, I understand. In recent times, I've come to see, I think, why Ayn Rand took this issue so seriously. It's not trivial. It like now that Roe v. Wade is actually overturned, it just blows my mind that we Americans are now in a country where people can walk into a doctor's office and tell the patient what procedure she may have on her own person. Absolutely mind-blowing. This is mysticism. This is the non-separation of church and state. We are moving towards a theocracy. The Republicans have increasingly expressed their lack of intellectual caliber. They're making the Democrats, the leftists, and or Democrats seem like the adults in the room. They're making the leftists or the Democrats seem intellectually coherent, and that is a sad, sad day, sad state of affairs. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll be back tomorrow for the Daily Objective. And goodbye.